the Bottom Line Podcast. I'm Jimmy Finizzi alongside Neil Villapiano. We hope you're doing well. As always, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen to us. We really do appreciate it. Before we get started, real quick, because we have a lot to digest in this episode, and I'm not sure how we're going to fit it all in an hour.
We already had a lot to talk about, and then over the past, I would say half hour, 45 minutes, it increased.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's definitely a lot that we have to discuss.
Oh yeah, we have a lot. To digest.
I already have the first topic behind me, so.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In case you're watching on YouTube, you probably
You
probably figured we were going to talk about this.
Yep, and also for those that are watching on YouTube, my face looks redder than usual, but it's because stupid me looks sunburnt. But maybe the light doesn't show it. But maybe the light doesn't show it, but I am sunburned on my face. But it's whatever. Maybe I exposed myself a little bit, but hey, I don't care. But before we get started, as always, questions, opinions, you know the deal. Twitter @BottomLineWMCX, @TheNVP Show, #Bottom Line, Anchor.fm, Anchor app, leave a voice message, all that stuff. And make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like and a comment down below and subscribe as well. And make sure you subscribe on Apple, Google, and Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. But make sure you include my first name, which is Jimmy, when you search for this podcast. So, Neil, another week, a lot to digest in today's episode. And by the way, you should stay tuned at the end of this episode because I teased the other day that we have a bit something special to share. So you may want to stay tuned at the end of the episode.
Definitely something different than what we normally
very, very different. And I'm really, really excited for it. But so stay tuned for that. But before we get started, Neil, real quick, you actually have a little bit of trivia for today, right?
Yes. Yeah, I believe it's my turn. So I guess
it is.
Yeah, so
I made up for it with 2 questions last week since I forgot one day. So yes, it is your turn. So my trivia question goes: the 1997 World Series between the Florida Marlins and the Cleveland Indians went 7 games. Right.
The Marlins ended up winning the World Series on a walk-off RBI single. My trivia question for you today, Jimmy, is this: who got the game-winning hit in Game 7 of the 97 World Series?
Oh, my God.
And I'll give you a hint.
I knew you were going to go there.
I'll give you another hint. He also had the game-winning home run in the World Series against the Texas Rangers in 2010 when he was a member of the San Francisco Giants.
Oh, my God. The funny thing is I can picture him. I can picture him right in front of me for both of those World Series. I can picture it. He's right there in front of me. Oh, my God.
I'll give you wait,
no. Edgar Renteria.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
All right.
Well done. Yes, Edgar Renteria had the game-winning RBI single in Game 7 of the 97 Fall Classic. And then in 2010, in Game, I want to say, what they went in 5? I think they won in 5.
I thought it was 5 or 6 games.
I think it was 5.
Okay.
In the last game of that World Series, Edgar Renteria hit a go-ahead game-winning home run, which actually I think ended up winning him World Series MVP. He might have won World Series in 2010. I don't know off the top of my head. But, yes, Edgar Renteria is the answer to today's trivia question. Well done, Jimmy. One of the few times that you actually got it right. I'm very impressed. Impressed.
The one time I actually get something right. But anyway, though, so thanks for that, Neil. I'll definitely have a trivia question, hopefully later on this week, if not next week. But
it'll probably be it's probably going to be not a sports trivia question, that's for sure.
Probably not, but that's a little bit of a tease. Like I said, stay tuned at the end of this episode to find out more. But we were going to start off with Jamal Adams because obviously that was the big news. He got traded to Seattle for a couple of first-round picks, but we'll get into that in a little while. We're also going to talk about the Knicks and their new head coach, but reportedly, yes, because they're
not been official yet. I don't know why they're taking so long, but it's not official.
I wish I knew the answer. They're finalizing a 5-year deal. We don't know how much money he's going to make, but
if they drop the ball on this, if this ends up not going through, this is going to be classic Knicks.
Yep, absolutely. But unfortunately, those things will have to be put on hold for just a brief moment, as real quickly we have to get into what's going on with Major League Baseball. So obviously, The season started last week. We were really, really excited. Our Yankees are looking pretty good, as well as Giancarlo Stanton. But the Florida Marlins, or Miami Marlins, excuse me,
Miami Marlins.
They ain't looking so hot. Well, why is that? First of all, they were supposed to play. Who were they supposed to play? The Orioles this weekend?
Orioles. They were supposed to play their home opener yesterday.
Yes.
It was supposed to be their first home game of the season against the Orioles.
Okay, yes. So they were supposed to play, what was it, a 3-game set?
Mm-hmm.
3-game set against the Orioles.
Actually, no. It was a 4-game set, 2 games in Miami and then 2 games in Baltimore.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure I got that correct. But unfortunately, the games in Florida did not happen, they got postponed. They're going to reschedule them for a later date, I believe. But and so did the 2 games in Philadelphia against the Phillies and the Yankees.
Yes.
But reports are that the Yankees are going back to Yankee Stadium because the Yankees and Phillies are supposed to play at Yankee Stadium the next couple of days. So, and the good news is that no Phillies tested positive as of right now, which is tremendous news. But if you're the Marlins, well, maybe you're not so lucky because we just heard actually about an hour ago at the time of this.
I would say about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, 45 minutes to an hour ago at the time of this recording that the Marlins now have, 17 or 19 positive cases within the last, 5 days, I believe? 5 days. Listen, I really don't want to be this guy, but this is what happens when you don't have a bubble. When you don't have a bubble to play in, this is what happens. Look at the NHL. They have no positive cases, which is tremendous. And they resume this week. We got exhibition games, and then the playoffs start this weekend. Yeah. So the NHL seems to look like they know what they're doing. They're actually in a bubble in Canada. I think they'll be just fine. And then same with the NBA. I mean, yeah, they're getting a little bit of positive cases here and there, but is it anything as drastic as the Marlins are right now? No. So, listen, Major League Baseball, I'm not going to hit the panic button just yet because, A, we expected to have positive cases with players and staff. So it was expected. I'm not hitting the panic button just yet, but, Neil, there has to be some concern here.
Well, Jimmy, let me first kind of give a background from when this started until the point that we're at now. So as of Monday, which was yesterday, July 27th, 11 Marlins players and 2 coaches had tested positive for the coronavirus. This started about 5 days ago when it was first announced that I think 3 players were not going to be playing against the Phillies because they had coronavirus.
Right.
And they even had one of their main players actually test positive a couple days, during one of the scrimmages back last week. So the Marlins were already in this situation where they were having it. And keep in mind, they play in Miami. They play in the state of Florida. And as we know, over the past month, the state of Florida has been getting absolutely destroyed with the amount of positive cases it's getting per day down there. So clearly that is one of the big hotbeds as of the last month. So let's keep that in mind. Right. Now, the results from basically this, I would say the past, 45 minutes, the recent test came back after the 3-game series, and it was announced that 5 more players were diagnosed with the coronavirus, which brings the total to 17 as of the time of this recording.
Right.
So as a result of that, the Phillies and Yankees were scheduled to play yesterday and today. Both games were postponed, and I guess the Yankees and Phillies will play those 2 games at a later date. The Yankees are going back to New York at some point this morning and going back and getting ready to possibly play the Phillies on Wednesday, which is tomorrow.
Right.
Now, the Phillies also did testing right after this came out. And it came back about half hour ago, maybe a little less than that, that as of the latest test, not a single Philly player nor coach has been diagnosed with the coronavirus.
Which is good, which is tremendous.
But remember, this is the early stages of it. It can, if you don't test these people on a day-to-day basis, it could change. So for all we know, we could get 2 or 3 positive cases tomorrow. Now, the reason why this is important is because of this reason. if even just one of the Phillies players or coaches tests positive for COVID-19, it will prove that the virus can spread even in a sport with very little contact like baseball. And that will put a major concern on the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and especially college football. With all those sports being very, very contact driven, very, very physical, that's going to make things a little bit worrisome. Now, Jimmy, you had mentioned about the NHL had just announced its recent testing with COVID-19. And that's great that they don't have any tests. But remember, it's a contact sport.
Right, yes.
The NHL is coming back today with some scrimmages. I believe there's 3 of them, and starting at 4:30 Eastern later on. It could change within the next 24 hours. 24 hours from now, we could have 4 or 5 new positive tests. I mean, that's how quickly this virus can spread. And it's not like Canada's perfect. And yes, they are in a bubble in Toronto and Edmonton, and that's great. But it still could happen. I think out of all the major sports, probably the NHL is going to be the most likely that could get through their entire rest of the season, playoffs, whatever you want to call it.
I agree.
And, without things getting really, really out of hand. The NBA is a shamble right now, in my opinion. It's not going to finish. They're not going to get through the 8 games before they have to stop, because eventually a star player is going to end up contracting the virus, and that's going to really put people on a lot of concern. So let's go back to the Marlins situation. Now, the Marlins, like we mentioned, were supposed to play their first 2 home games of the season yesterday and today, and that's not going to happen. Right. What I have heard is that the Marlins have already signed a handful of players to replace the guys that are going to be out of the lineup and not playing because of COVID-19. The plan for the Marlins right now is for them to go to Baltimore and possibly play tomorrow with these guys that are not there. Now, what does that mean for the players and coaches that tested positive? Well, as the protocol goes, if you tested positive, you have to stay in that city regardless of where you are. You have to stay in that city until you get 2 negative tests.
Right.
So there is a good chance that those Marlins players and coaches are going to be stuck in Philadelphia for another 2 or 3 weeks while they try to recover from COVID-19. But then once they get through that, is anybody going to feel totally safe to go back and continue to try to get through this?
Most likely not.
No, exactly. And that's going to be the thing. So right now, the Phillies, Marlins, and Yankees are all in Philadelphia at this very moment. But like we mentioned, the Yankees probably by now are already on their way back to New York. Mm-hmm. The Yankees were not in the same hotel as the Marlins, so that's something that we should just keep in mind. Yes. But the Yankees are going to go back to New York, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens within the next 24 hours.
Oh, and by the way, we should also forget to mention, I'm sorry to cut you off, Neil, we should also mention that the Phillies recently hosted the Marlins. So yes. You're right. Anything can change at any moment.
Well, that's why it becomes a cause for concern, because of the fact that if any player on the Phillies, any player or coach on the Phillies tests positive, it's going to clearly prove that the virus is spreading during play. And even though we're not seeing it a lot in other games so far, in other places, that doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Right.
This is that big domino that could possibly fall, that could put an end to everything. Now, again, it's something that we just have to keep our minds. Now, one thing that upsets me is this. It was reported yesterday by CNN originally that the Marlins had a group chat discussion via text on Sunday prior to their final game against the Phillies in their series, debating whether or not to play. And actually, they decided to play, even though they already knew what was going on, and they had all the information. They knew a handful of players were testing positive. Mm-hmm. That could be a suable offense from the Phillies standpoint, because the Phillies, if they were not notified of this, if they were kept out of the dark, if everybody was kept out of the dark, the Phillies could easily sue the Marlins for this. Because it's something that, hey, you knew it was going on, yet you chose to play anyway. You put all our guys in harm's way. And you could say, well, you put yourself in harm's way every single game, whether or not the teams have coronavirus or not. And I get that. But if you had this information already up front, then you're liable to that. You need to inform. And I understand that it was difficult because you say, oh, well, we don't have enough players to play if we decided. Then just cancel the damn game. Then just say, no, we're not going to do this. Like that would have been the right thing to do. The problem is that in this day and age with obviously people who are in charge of the quote unquote free world right now, everybody just doesn't want to listen to logic and doesn't want to do the right thing because of different reasons. Money, they just want to stick it to the man. There's all these different things. And even that little situation right there, well, not little, but that situation right there is just a good example of it. Now, Robert Manfred was interviewed by Jeff Passan yesterday on SportsCenter, and Robert Manfred pretty much said, we're not in a nightmare situation right now. We're going to continue to try to play, and we're going to move forward.
Right.
Robert Manfred is speaking for all the owners of baseball, okay? Mm-hmm. And he's putting himself in a very bad situation because it doesn't seem like he's taking this as serious as he should. Now, Dr. Fauci was also asked this as well about the whole situation with the Marlins, and he said, I think the season can continue to move forward, but at the same time, we have to be very, very cautious and keep an eye on this.
Right.
Because if this gets out of hand, like it already looks like it is, I'm sorry, but you have to put this season on pause. Or matter of fact, you may just have to just accept defeat, wave the white flag, and just say, we'll get them. We'll do this again next year. That's the big thing that we have to keep in mind. And again, like I mentioned, also, this has already affected several different sports in different types of levels. College football, you have two major football programs in Michigan State and Rutgers who are both in quarantine right now because players and coaches have tested positive for the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And already several different conferences are talking about the situations to say, I don't know if we're going to be able to play fall sports. I mean, the MAC conference just announced that they're not going to be playing. Monmouth University just announced that they're not going to be playing any fall sports
I heard
this
about
upcoming
that.
year. It's getting to that point, ladies and gentlemen. This is no joke. We've been over this time and time again. This virus is no joke. It can come at you in a wave, so much so that you're not prepared for this. Now, again, also, Jeff Passan did tweet out, only 20, 25 minutes ago that no Philly coach or player tested positive for the coronavirus, which is good for now. But
right.
Everything could change within the next 24 hours. This is why they do the daily testing. But unfortunately, I believe that they are still taking away tests from people who really need it right now. I don't truly believe that Major League Baseball is doing what it's saying it's doing. Oh, we're making enough tests so that we're not taking it away from other people. I don't agree. I don't believe that's true. I believe that they are taking tests away from people that need it more than they do, and that's kind of the problem that we're having right now. But the thing that's the most concerning is that Jeff Passan said that he believes that most likely there will be more cases from the Marlins and from Major League Baseball when this is all said and done. So bottom line is this. Major League Baseball needs to stop. I'm sorry. I was very happy watching the Yankees. It was great watching, some baseball and having something to take away from what's going on for a couple hours. But this is too much. You have one team that literally has had more than your starting 9 players be, testing positive for the virus. You have to come to grips with and say, we can't do this. We cannot do this. This is not possible. And unfortunately, Major League Baseball tried to do a bubble. The MLB Players Association was not wild about it, particularly because they wanted to do it in Arizona, of all damn places. And Major League Baseball is doing nothing but shooting itself in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, I really hate to say it, but you're right. I mean, if this is going to keep up, then I see no purpose in continuing the season. If you're going to keep, well, especially if you're the Marlins, if you decide to keep playing, you're basically putting every other team who you're supposed to play at risk. I mean, granted, forget it. I'm probably not going to go there because this is not a political podcast, so I'm not going to go there. But listen, bottom line for me is that, am I concerned? Yes, 100%. But am I hitting the panic button as of right now? No. Let's see what happens with the Philly. No, go ahead, Neil. I'm sorry.
I'm different. I've already hit the panic button. I'm like Davey Martinez, the manager of the Nationals, who the media asked him yesterday prior to his game against the Blue Jays, who, by the way, his star player Soto tested positive the day, basically the same day that they were going to play the Yankees on opening night.
Yep.
He said, my concern level went from a 7 to a 12. And I'm in the same boat as him. Because, look, we knew this was coming. There was no way you could guarantee that positive tests were not going to come. I just think that people weren't expecting one team to have this many in a span of less than a week. That's the problem we're dealing with right now. It would be one thing if one player every now and then was getting it. It's like, okay, we got that. The Yankees had both Aroldis Chapman and DJ LeMahieu both have to sit out for a while because they had corona. Now, Chapman still needs another negative test before he could come back, but DJ LeMahieu was back, and
I think he already had one, right?
Yeah, he's fine. DJ LeMahieu got back; he's okay.
Right. Yes.
If you are the Yankees, you played the Nationals for 3 games. Soto had COVID-19. There is still the possibility that somebody on the Yankees has the virus right now. The Phillies, albeit they tested positive as of today, but who's to say that it won't change tomorrow? See, this is the problem.
You mean negative as of today.
Right. It won't. It could change to a positive tomorrow. You could go from having none to all of a sudden you have 6 or 7 people within the Phillies organization that have COVID-19. That's the thing that's inaccurate about these tests. One day it could say 0, and the next day it could be 10. So this is not something that we're like, okay, like it's going to be all right. Like it's going to be, no, it's not all right. Like we're not in a good situation. Baseball is screwed right now. Baseball is in a situation that I don't see it. This is why I believe that they were only going to get, the most games they were going to get was 10. The most games that most teams are going to be able to play was 10 before they stop. And it's probably going to be sooner than that. I believe that by sometime within the next week, Major League Baseball is going to stop because I don't see how this is going to get any better. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets a lot better.
Well, me being the optimist that I am, I'm still remaining as optimistic as I can be. But at the same time, yes, I am concerned. There is no question about that. But that's pretty much the bottom line.
I'm much more. I'm not being a pessimist. I would consider myself more of a realist and trying to understand the situation that is at hand. But I do understand the optimism because what else do we have?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But that's pretty much the bottom line with the whole Marlins situation. Just wanted to touch up on that real quick since that was a trending thing going on right now. We certainly hope and pray that everybody will be okay. But anyway, so now we can get into two of the other biggest stories that happened over the past weekend, and that would be one of them being Jamal Adams. He's out. Now, can he stop being such a damn baby? Well, probably not, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So, in case you missed it somehow, Jamal Adams finally is out of New York. He's not on the Jets anymore. He got traded to the Seattle Seahawks. Jets deal, and this is from Adam Schefter on Twitter, who tweeted this. Jets deal Jamal Adams and a 4th-round pick in 2022 to the Seattle Seahawks in exchange for Bradley McDougald, who is a safety, by the way, a 1st-round pick in 2021, a 3rd-round pick in 2021, and a 1st-round pick in 2022, and the deal is obviously pending physicals. They basically got 2 first-round picks for him. I mean, how can you lose with that? How can you lose? And if you're the Jets, you don't have to worry about giving him what he wants. You don't have to worry about him anymore. He's not going to be a distraction in the locker room. Now, granted, he is a tremendous player. I think he could be in the conversation for one of the best safeties in football right now. That's how tremendous he is. And he's only 24 years old. He has the potential to go, his ceiling has the potential to go higher than this. Probably way up to the sky. That's how talented this kid is. And I hope he does well in Seattle. But here's why I say he really should stop complaining. Because I heard a little bit, it's not that big of a deal to me, but the fact that he complained about like, yo, you really didn't have to put this kid on a 7 a.m. flight. Really? I mean, if you really didn't understand that's part of the business, I'm sorry. Then you just need to shut the hell up. But listen, as far as who won this trade, it really it really remains to be seen right now because we don't know how Jamal Adams is going to do in Seattle. I still think he's a very talented safety, but who knows how he's going to do in Seattle. Granted, he just bolstered that defense a ton because you already had a great defense as it is. Now you've improved it a ton. You have a tremendous quarterback in Russell Wilson. You have a great coach. You have the 12th man. You have a decent offensive line. So Seattle, to me, just got a whole lot better, and they are potential playoff contenders. I'm not going to say Super Bowls right now because that remains to be seen for me, but Jamal Adams, to me, just made that team a little bit better in my eyes. And as far as Bradley McDougald, I mean, I haven't seen him play as much to know how good he's going to be, but I've seen a little bit of him to say, hey, he's pretty decent. He can definitely help. He can definitely help the Jets out a little bit, and they also still have a young safety on the roster. So, bottom line is, do I like this deal? Absolutely, because A, he can finally shut the hell up about his money, and maybe, well, if Seattle will actually do it, they'll actually give him what he wants by the time the season's over, and we'll see if they actually do start on time. And B, the Jets don't have to worry about it anymore. They don't have to worry about him being a distraction in the locker room. They don't have to worry about him complaining about the money. They don't have to worry about him this and this and this and that. It's over. It's over. You don't have to worry about it anymore. So good on the Jets. They actually got an offer they couldn't refuse. 2 first-round picks. How could you lose with that?
Because you're the Jets. That's how you lose it. Well, first of all, let me just say this. The Jets lost this entire situation.
Wait, what's that?
They lost this entire situation. They failed at the end of the day. They failed. Yeah, they did. And I'll explain why. First of all, Jamal Adams is clearly one of the top 2 safeties in the National Football League right now. Jamal Adams is a dynamic player who has 12 career sacks, which is unheard of from a safety position. Unheard of. This guy was the single biggest reason the Jets defense has been relatively consistent over the last couple of years. And Jamal Adams has played for an organization that, frankly, just doesn't care that much about winning. And this has happened over and over and over again with players that they've had. Now, I want to start by, saying a couple quotes that Joe Douglas said on the Michael Kay show yesterday when he was being interviewed.
I heard
First
this.
thing he said is that when Michael Kay asked him about what was the decision when it came to this, obviously trading Jamal, he said, this was a move we couldn't pass up. Yeah, you could have passed it up. You really could have. Because, well, I'll get to that in just a minute.
Go ahead.
Another quote that he said is, Joe Douglas believes that this move was an opportunity to make the Jets better. All right.
I mean, you lost your star safety, so
that makes a lot of sense to the Jets. Then Michael Kay asked him one of those hard-hitting questions because Jamal, via the New York Post 2 days ago, or a couple of days ago, I don't remember exactly what day.
Yeah, he basically called out Adam Gase and said he's not a leader.
He called out Gase. He called out Joe Douglas because apparently what Jamal Adams said was that Joe Douglas had promised both he and his agent that they were going to give him that massive contract extension that he was asking for. Joe Douglas responded to it on the Michael Kay show saying, quote, "We never promised Jamal and his agent a contract," end quote. And also Joe Douglas later on said, "We are trying to develop a team that is about drafting, developing, and extending players." And then when it came to talking about Adam Gase, he said, "We have the right coach for this football team." There is so much Jets in this, classic Jets, that it's laughable, but I'm not laughing because I'm tired of it. Like, I'm not a Jets fan, but I am tired of this. I'm tired of this constant circle of you get a great player, eventually he wants to get paid, the Jets don't want to pay him, the player wants out, you decide to trade him, everybody thinks you made a good deal, but at the end of the day, the Jets won't get good players with those draft picks. And even if they do, they're not sticking around after 2 or 3 years. Because this is the great thing about Woody Johnson since he took over the Jets. Woody Johnson has never been a fan of giving anybody any sort of money.
Chris Johnson, you mean?
Well, Woody Johnson technically is the owner of the team. Chris Johnson took over
yes.
for Woody Johnson when Woody Johnson decided to become the ambassador for the UK, for the United States in the United Kingdom under President Trump. By the way, Woody Johnson's looking pretty bad right now in the public, but I don't think there's much substance to that, as much as we saw with Dan Snyder and the Washington football team. It's two different types of things. But when it was announced that the Jets had traded Jamal Adams, I was laughing because it didn't surprise me. I knew this was going to happen. I honestly 100% knew the Jets were going to trade Jamal Adams. There was no way he was going to stay here, because it has nothing to do with the Jets were worried that Jamal was going to be a problem in the locker. No, it had nothing to do with that. The Jets were never going to pay him. They were never going to want it, because the Jets don't operate like that. They never have, especially since the Johnson took over. The last decent owner the Jets have ever had was the late Leon Hess. And I spoke about this with several Jets fans yesterday. You want to know the big reason why Bill Belichick actually didn't want to become the head coach of the Jets? It was because when they decided that there had to be new ownership, it was between Woody Johnson and James Dolan. You couldn't win that situation. Bill Belichick.
Wait a minute. James Dolan. Where was he involved? And where was I when this happened?
Because he had the money and because he wants as much power as possible. Gee, come on, man. This is
sure. But why do you taint another franchise? Come on.
Well, that's the thing. Bill Belichick knew 20 years ago that this was going to be a shambling disaster, and it turns out that's pretty much been the case. It's been that way. Woody Johnson is a guy that would love nothing more than to pay very little for talent. He is the type of guy that if the team ends up winning by not paying very much, he's all for it. But at the end of the day, being a winning franchise, it doesn't matter to him. He just doesn't want to pay people. You know what's the biggest thing about getting those 2 first-round picks is that if Sam Darnold has another bad season this year, or let's not say bad, let's say he just doesn't do very well.
Right.
The Jets could just kick him to the curb, and they could just go and draft another quarterback that won't be getting paid very much. And they could just continue this trend. They could just continue this trend.
Hold on a minute. To be fair to Sam Darnold, he still needs help. He has no weapons. He lost Robbie Anderson, who's been his best weapon. Who does he have? Nobody.
He has nobody because ownership won't go out and try to get anybody. I mean, this is ridiculous.
True. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know, you can praise Joe Douglas all you want for getting the value that he did. And let me be honest, it is somewhat of an overpayment from the Seahawks perspective. But they still won the trade. And the reason I say it is because of this reason. Jamal Adams, again, he's 24 years old. You still have 2 years of control over him. So if you don't want to give him the money now, which honestly, I think Jamal at this point is probably fine with, you can let him play under his rookie deal for another 2 years, him continue to be a beast, possibly begin the process of creating the Legion of Boom Part 2.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's that now, but if you can continue to get more pieces in there, you could create a defense. And also, you just got a top 10 player while you also already locked up your franchise quarterback.
Yep.
I mean, the Seahawks are in a prime position to be a Super Bowl contender, and I believe that they are. I believe that they're good enough to make a run at the Super Bowl in the NFC. I really do believe that. Do I think that they're a team that could go and win the Super Bowl? That remains to be seen. Because if they have to play Kansas City, nobody's figured out how to stop that offense.
Yeah.
We'll see. But do I believe the Jets over the next 2 years with those 4 first-round picks that they have are going to somehow become great? No. Because it's proven before that they do a very poor job of drafting, developing, and extending these players. As Joe Douglas tried to say yesterday, it's the same song, like the 300th verse of it. I mean, I wrote a book about this. Go check out my book, JTS Pain. It will tell you everything you need to know about why this is the same thing that's happening over and over again. Why did Robbie Anderson not stay with the Jets? Because he wasn't going to get paid by the Jets. The Jets weren't going to give him the money. Now, you could sit there and say, well, what about Le'Veon Bell? He got paid $50 million. Well, let me tell you something about that. Mike Maccagnan wanted Le'Veon Bell. The Johnson did not want Le'Veon Bell. Adam Gase definitely didn't want Le'Veon Bell. So this is what happened. The Jets signed Le'Veon Bell, albeit they weren't thrilled about giving him $50 million, which honestly, $50 million is not that bad. So it's over 2 years. I think
for a running back, that's not the worst.
Look at Derrick Henry. Look at the other guys that have already gotten paid. I mean, come on. Like who? Anyway, then when Adam Gase was being interviewed by the Jets, was Mike Maccagnan part of that interview process? No.
Nope.
It was the Johnsons. The Johnsons were the ones that wanted Adam Gase. Why? Well, here's why. This is my opinion. This is not facts. This is my opinion. I believe that Adam Gase basically told the Johnsons what they wanted to hear, which was Mike Maccagnan needs to go. He's not a good GM. I don't like Le'Veon Bell, the same as much as you do. And I am willing to, give you guys as much control as you want, as long as you give me the job. And the Johnsons were thrilled to hear that. That's why Mike McCarthy didn't get the job. Mike McCagnan, and then all of a sudden he gets hired. And then a week after he gets hired as the head coach, you had that whole scenario where Mike Maccagnan is let go as the GM of the Jets. Adam Gase is the interim GM. He hires his buddy in Joe Douglas, and the Jets, once again, are a circus. I mean, this is great. No other franchise in the NFL could have a situation where your GM lose a power struggle to your head coach other than the Jets. So Adam Gase pretty much is the man in charge. I'm sorry, Joe Douglas doesn't have a lot of say in this. He doesn't. Adam Gase is pissed off because he was called out by Jamal Adams, which I applaud Jamal Adams for doing so because nobody else in an organization was going to say it. Even Le'Veon Bell, who has gotten nothing but abuse from Adam Gase because it's been clear as daylight that Adam Gase doesn't like Le'Veon, doesn't want him on the team, and would love nothing more than to trade him. This is the honest truth.
That's unfair to me. That's unfair.
How is that unfair?
Well, no,
explain.
Just because you don't like him. I mean, I'd put up with it if he was a good running back, which he still is. But there's no offensive line. So what do you get? Forget it.
The report that came out about Adam Gase not liking Le'Veon happened before the season started. Adam Gase never wanted Le'Veon Bell. The Johnsons never wanted Le'Veon Bell. Mike Maccagnan, who gave a crap about winning, was trying his damnedest to help Sam Darnold get weapons. A lot of people praised the Jets for getting Le'Veon Bell when they did because he had a year off. He was much healthier than most top running backs. He's really good out of the backfield when it comes to catching the ball as well as running out of the backfield. And he was a weapon. But the Jets, because they don't want to pay anybody, were like, no, even though he's a great player and yes, he'll help us win, we don't want to spend that money. It's amazing how much the Wilpons who own the Mets and the Johnsons who own the Jets, how similar their thinking process is. And again, I'll bring it up. The interest of the owners is not the same as the interest of the fans. Jets fans have been dying for a winner, to be relevant, to be respected in a National Football League, but because their ownership doesn't give a flying you-know-what, this is what you're going to get. This is exactly what you're going to get. So Jamal Adams, I don't fault him whatsoever for getting upset, for calling out people, because guess what? It needed to be done. It needed to be called out. Adam Gase is not a leader. He is an incompetent head coach. Why do you think the Dolphins fired him? Why do you think that he didn't last? Oh, wait, maybe it's because he doesn't know what he's doing. And everybody wants to say, well, Neil, look at how the Jets finished the season last year. Dude, they lost to 2 winless teams.
Just about to,
I mean, how the hell
they lost to the Bengals and they lost to, who else did they lose?
Dolphins.
The Dolphins, right. The Dolphins.
And they had a weak schedule in the second half of the year. And going 7-9, the fact that you tried to convince me, going at 7-9 is somehow great? That's ridiculous. Look, it's a little bit different with the Giants because they haven't won more than 5 games in about 4 years. So if the Giants go 8-8 this year, it will be considered a positive season.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
What have you seen? 5-11, 5-11, 4-12, 3-13, 7-9. You're still 2 games below 500. I mean, this is a joke. I mean, this is an actual joke. But the Johnsons, their mindset is always this. There is no such thing as bad publicity. They want to be on the front page, the middle page, and the back page of every newspaper in New York, New Jersey, and matter of fact, at times, all over this damn country.
Mm-hmm.
And this just takes the freaking cake. Jamal Adams, it had nothing to do with the money. I can guarantee you this whole debacle that Jets got into had nothing to do about money. It had to do one thing and one thing only. Jamal Adams was smart enough to realize that the Jets are a shambling disaster. Their ownership doesn't give a crap about winning. They don't pay anybody, and he wanted out. You think it's enjoyable for one player to come to a team and for his first 3-4 seasons, you don't win Jack Diddley squat? It's not fun at all.
No, no.
Here's an example. What if you were a player on the Cleveland Browns a couple years ago when you went 1-15 and then the year after you go 0-16? You go freaking 1-31 in your first 2 years of your career.
And your head coach gets fired.
All you know is losing. That's all your mentality. That's the mentality that your ownership is put into, your coaching is put into, and that's what you get. The Jets are the same thing. The Jets, which is great, and you could say, well, how can you compare the Jets to the Browns? Well, here's the thing. I think the Browns actually care about winning. I just think they don't know how to do it. I just think they have
That's true,
a bad outlook. I think they just honestly don't know how to properly manage a team.
And not to mention they have an overrated quarterback, in my opinion, but that's another discussion for another day.
That's a discussion for like 2 or 3 months down the road.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
The Jets, they play in New York. Yes, they play in Jersey. I get that. All right, cool. But they play just outside of New York, in the biggest media market in the freaking world. They share a stadium with a franchise that has had much more success over the past 25 years than this team has. You've always been the stepchild. You've always been the stepchild to the New York Giants. And you continue to not give a crap about winning. Them being successful in 2009 and 2010 was an accident because Rex Ryan is not an offensive coach. He's a defensive, let's ground and pound team. If it wasn't for Schottenheimer doing everything possible to try to win despite that, the Jets would have sucked.
Yeah,
and then you thought when all of a sudden people were blaming Schottenheimer, which was the wrong thing to do, and this is what we have. Now, why am I bringing all these things up? Because, again, this proves for the umpteenth time that the Jets are a shambling disaster of an organization. And this, it just takes the cake. And any Jets fan that wants to go out there and say, oh, geez, well, good for him. We don't need no clown. No, actually, your franchise is a clown. Mm-hmm. It's like Don McGregor says all the time. You're a clown show. I mean, really, the Jets are a clown show. They are a unified clown show. Jamal Adams saw the writing on the wall. He was smarter than everyone else in the room. But guess what? There are a lot of Jets players who know what the reality is, but because they don't have the talent like Jamal Adams, of course they can't say anything because they could be easily shipped out, released, and they might even be traded. They could just be released and never play another game. So they're going to keep their mouth shut. They're going to try to play. And then maybe, hopefully, either the Jets somehow accidentally get good or they move on to somewhere else. You don't think that Sam Darnold, by this point in his career, is a little bit sick and tired of being this crappy?
I'm pretty sure he is.
I mean, people want to say, oh, Sam Darnold's such an overrated quarterback. Well, it doesn't help.
That's unfair. Come on.
It doesn't help when you have nothing to work with.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter because guess what? You could put Mitch Trubisky under center and they'd still win the same amount of games. I mean, it doesn't matter because they don't have anybody. And you want to talk about busts. I mean, my goodness, in the draft? Come on now. You drafted D. Milner, who had, 30 tackles his entire career? You drafted Leonard Williams, who's one of the worst defensive tackles when it comes to getting to the quarterback? And you traded him to the Giants? Which, albeit, you won that trade because you got some pretty solid picks out of it. That was a fleece of the Giants, by the way. That was like one of the only moves that I said, you know what, the Jets did win this trade.
Yeah.
Thank God they got rid of him. Quinnen Williams is okay. He's not great. It's like, and then, obviously, then you got to look at quarterbacks and say, when was the last time the Jets had a half-decent quarterback?
Vinny Testaverde.
Yeah. Vinny Testaverde 20 years ago. 20 years ago. I mean, are you kidding me right now? I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. So Jets fans, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but if you're old enough, and I'm only 23, ladies and gentlemen, and so I don't have as much experience as some Jets fans, but if you're in your 50s and you've watched this Jets team for a long time, you should know by now that this should not come as a surprise, that the Jets don't care about winning, they don't want to pay nobody, and the reality is this. I will quote Joe Douglas, but I'm going to change the quote. They're not good at drafting. They're not good at developing, and they don't extend anybody. That's plain and simple. Le'Veon Bell will not be a Jet within 2 years. Sam Darnold's going to be gone unless he somehow pulls a great year out of his butt. But even if he does that, they won't give him the money that he deserves. And nothing to that. And do I have confidence that all these picks are going to be great players? No, not one bit. Because it's the Jets. They do a poor job of scouting, poor job of developing, and poor job of extending these guys. They just do a poor job. Now, is Bradley McDougald going to be as good as Jamal Adams? No. Is he still one of the top 30 defensive, or at least top 50 defensive players in the NFL? Yeah, he is.
I think so, yeah.
At least they got a starting caliber safety to replace. They don't have to, go out in the free agent market to get one. Good job by them. But the Jets lost this deal. And even if those players that they draft are great, they're not going to be around long term. The Jets don't do this unless Steve Cohen decides I'm no longer interested in the Mets and I'm willing to give $10 billion to the Johnsons to kick rocks and stop owning the Jets. I don't see how this is going to work out one way or another. And the fact that you want to try to tell me that Adam Gase is still a competent head coach, you are smoking the good dope. But of course, Joe Douglas is going to say we have the right coach because guess what? If it wasn't for Adam Gase, Joe Douglas wouldn't be the GM of the Jets. This is the old buddy system. This is a joke. What an absolute joke. And this is classic Jets, ladies and gentlemen. Jets, pain, pain, pain. That's all I got to say.
By the book for 1969, by the way.
Well freaking done, Jets. For the 8,000th time, you blew it. You had a once-in-a-generational talent, a top 5 defensive player in the National Football League, and you traded him away because you don't want to pay him and because you're scared.
Because you didn't want to hear it from his mouth.
You want to tell me that Jamal Adams, what he said wasn't true?
Well, it is true. It is.
Well, let's be honest. Players have lied before, like Antonio Brown.
He wasn't lying.
Jamal Adams, I don't think is lying. Most of the time, the players tell it like it is. And is Joe Douglas insulted? Yeah, but it's not because it's not true. So, Jamal Adams is going to be much happier playing in Seattle than he ever did playing with the Jets.
Yep, and if he wins a Super Bowl in Seattle, the Jets are going to regret it every single year. But bottom line is, Neil, you do make excellent points, but for me at least, I need to see how everything plays out. I think Bradley McDougald is going to be serviceable for the Jets. He'll be serviceable, but Jamal Adams with Seattle, he is going to shine. He is going to be a star on that defense for Seattle. But bottom line is, I need to see how it all plays out. But Neil, you do bring up very, very valiant points, and I really cannot argue them with you. The Jets are, as Don LaGreca says, a clown show, and quite frankly, we're sick of the clown shoe garbage. Now let's get into, real quick, the New York Knicks, because they actually have a new head coach. Really? Yes. Well, yes, they do. And I will read you this article courtesy of Woj, who just came back from a suspension recently, but we're not going to get into all that here. But Woj wrote this article on ESPN saying, the New York Knicks and Tom Thibodeau are finalizing a 5-year deal to make him the franchise's next head coach. Knicks president Leon Rose, agent Spencer Breaker, of CAA Sports were working Saturday to complete contractual terms, and a signed agreement is expected in the near future. I'm going to stop right there. Define near future. This is typical Knicks. Define near future. You say you're finalizing a 5-year deal, but yet you don't want to disclose when that deal is going to be done. Define near future. Anyway, back to this article here real quick. Rose and Executive Vice President William Wesley, who, by the way, that was a tremendous hire. Tremendous hire. That's probably one of the best hires I've ever seen by the Knicks.
In case you don't know who that is, that's Worldwide West.
Usually yes, Worldwide West. And that tremendous hire.
Doesn't matter, but
it's still typical Knicks. It's still typical Knicks, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Leon Rose and Executive Vice President William Wesley, Worldwide West, are completing a 2-month search process with Thibodeau long expected to emerge with a job. Together, they'll be tasked with the daunting challenge, of restoring a forlorn franchise to NBA relevance. Well, you're walking into mediocrity, first of all, because the Knicks have been irrelevant for the last 25 years. The only time they made the playoffs in this era, well, at least in the past decade, was 2012 when you won 54 games, and that was the only time they actually were relevant, when they actually had a decent head coach in Mike Woodson. But no, you let him go. You let go of the only decent coach you had in quite some time, and look where that's gotten you. Now I get it. It's James Dolan owned the team. They've been a dumpster fire for the past 25 years, like I said. But I need to see how Tom Thibodeau does with the Knicks to officially see how this will play out. Because I still think he's a decent head coach. But it's clear that the Knicks were not looking in the direction of developing young players. Otherwise, you would have went with Kenny Atkinson, who would have been my first choice, as I've argued in previous episodes, because, in my opinion, again, you need somebody who can develop young guys like Kevin Knox, Frank Ntilikina, Mitchell Robinson. You need somebody who can develop those young guys, and Kenny Atkinson would have done it, in my opinion. He would have been my first choice, and I still stand by that, but I digress. Anyway, though, but Jeff Van Gundy was actually on a conference call about this, and he slammed some owners because they were questioning the hire. He said, if I can pull it up right here.
And by the way, before you continue, just so that people know, Tom Thibodeau's first major job was an assistant coach under Jeff Van Gundy, while Van Gundy was the coach in the Knicks.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
So you can take this with a grain of salt because this was a former assistant of Van Gundy, but it's still a legitimate and I did listen to this. It's still a legitimate compliment. It's still a legitimate argument, in my opinion.
Right. So he was basically asked if Thibodeau can still be a taskmaster. And he said, and I quote,
"Your job.
I don't think players have changed nearly as much as organizations and coaches have changed. You can't demand less of players and then complain that they're willing to do less at times. I find it does a disservice to players. I think good players in any era want to be challenged and pushed to be their best, and they want to play on teams of significance. This idea that Tom Thibodeau doesn't know how to pace his team is one of the great slanders that has been perpetuated by the media on a coach." Well, damn, Jeff. I know we can go off at times, but damn, I didn't expect him to. And I get it; they're close friends, so it's understandable that he'll want to defend him. And like you said, Neil, they worked together with the Knicks. But listen, do I like it? In a way, yeah. But I need to see how it plays out to fully give you a definite answer. So I'm still a little bit on the edge about it, but it's clear to me that, unless this somehow plays out the way I hope. And don't forget, they were considering Jason Kidd before Thibodeau. They were considering Jason Kidd. Really? Really? I mean, this is typical New York Knicks, and I'm sick of the clown show with them too. But bottom line is, I like Tom Thibodeau. I still think he can be a serviceable head coach in this league, but I need to see how it plays out with this organization especially, because they have been nothing but a joke for the past 20, 25 years.
You know, there's a couple things I want to disagree with you on, Jimmy. First of all, I want to say this, that I really like the Tom Thibodeau hire. He was the best coach available, in my opinion. And the advantage the Knicks had is it's kind of like, I'll use a hockey reference. It's like when the Devils basically, it seemed like they were the only team in the NHL who was looking for a head coach that was interviewing anybody. They got off to a head start. Because they're not returning this season, they get a head start on trying to find a guy that they feel most comfortable with. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the Knicks. Look, we knew, when Leon Rose was hired, we already knew, look, what were the chances that Mike Miller was going to stay after this year? Very slim. Unless the Knicks really, really all of a sudden had a dramatic turnaround and finished the year on such a high note, Mike Miller probably didn't have much of a chance to stick around. Mm. But really, Leon Rose, and then obviously him deciding to hire Worldwide West, which that duo is going to be very fascinating. And I would be excited if they were in part of any other organization other than the Knicks, because of the fact that James Dolan cares so much about having power and control in the basketball operations.
Right.
But if he just lets these guys do what they do, like he does with the Rangers, then obviously I think you're going to get a lot of success out of that. That's the way I look at it. Do I think that the Knicks hired Leon Rose to be a guy to try to attract free agents? Maybe not originally. Maybe not immediately. Maybe within the next 2 or 3 years, once hopefully the guys develop the way that they want to hope that they develop, and they become a competitive team once again.
Right.
Leon Rose, I think, made it clear early on that Tom Thibodeau was his guy. Now, we obviously heard about the report a couple of days ago that the Knicks were all of a sudden more interested in Jason Kidd. I believe that story was false. I believe the Knicks used that to force Tom Thibodeau's hand to then sign. Is that a bad move by the Knicks? No, not necessarily, because I think probably Tom Thibodeau really wanted the job, but there were some particulars.
So hold on. Are you trying to tell me I fell for clickbait again?
Yes.
God damn it. Oh my God.
I think most of us did. It didn't surprise me. I mean, I felt for it. No, I felt for it originally because it was the classic Knicks type of thing. But once, obviously, we heard that Tom Thibodeau was going to be the coach, it was like, okay, now I understand why that report came out. Those reports came out because they wanted to try to force Tom Thibodeau to say, hey, if you don't agree with us within the next 24, 48 hours, we're moving on. And I just want to defend Jason Kidd a little bit here. Jason Kidd was actually pretty solid when he was
he was.
Yeah. The problem was, Billy King. That was the issue. Billy King was a head case, and that's why Jay Kidd wanted to leave, because he couldn't stand Billy King, because Billy King got in the way too often. Was Jason Kidd better in Milwaukee? No, because again, I think Jason Kidd got power hungry. I think he wanted more control of the team. The Bucks weren't willing to give it to him, and as a result, he was clashing heads, and he was, being very critical of Giannis early on in his career. But Giannis developed a lot more because of Jason Kidd.
Right.
I think if the Knicks hired Jason Kidd, to me, the reason would have been because you're trying to somehow convince Giannis to come to the Knicks within a year or two.
Right.
And which is a very pathetic thing to do. But I think at the end of the day, from where I'm seeing all this, I don't think the Knicks were really that interested in Jason Kidd from the get-go. I think they used it as a way to get Tom Thibodeau to become the Knicks head coach. And if that's the case, it worked out, and good job. And I give the Knicks credit for doing that. Because sometimes you got to do those things. You got to be a little sleazy to try to get things to happen. So it's understandable. But I disagree with what you said about Tom Thibodeau being a player development. He is a player development coach. And I'll explain why. He was the coach of the Bulls. By the way, when the last time the Bulls were actually good, he had a young Derrick Rose, who became the youngest MVP in NBA history. He had a young Jimmy Butler, who developed into a star. He had Joakim Noah, who at the time was a defensive monster. I mean, come on. He did a really good job. And you know what? If it wasn't for Derrick Rose getting hurt, the Bulls could have probably made it to at least one NBA final. They were on the verge of doing that. And then we went to Minnesota. He took them to the playoffs for the first time in many, many freaking years. And yes, did he have his problems with Karl Anthony Towns? Yeah. Did he have his problems with Jimmy Butler when he came over to the freaking Wolves?
Yes.
Yeah. But that's like one or two players out of the many that he's coached. And another thing about Tom Thibodeau is that he is 11th in career winning percentage for coaches with 500 or more wins in their career. He is 352 and 246 with a winning percentage of .589. That's pretty damn good considering a lot of the other coaches that are out there in the NBA. He has the second most wins of any coach who was available in the past 2 years. So he's clearly the most competent head coach. Do I disagree with the hiring of David Fizdale originally? No, because he did a really good job with the Memphis Grizzlies with their defense, and I thought that's what he was going to be able to create in New York. But obviously,
the Knicks pretty much threw him under the bus.
Yeah, and that wasn't Fizdale's fault. Fizdale was not given an opportunity right from the start to do what he needed to do.
Exactly, and he was given nothing.
Right, 100%. So I think that Tom Thibodeau is a good coach for where the Knicks are right now. A developmental coach, a guy who's no nonsense. He has a big voice. He is not afraid to demand more of his players. And I think that's what the Knicks need. I think it's what these players need. The Knicks have an opportunity to get a top pick this year. If they can get the number 1 overall pick, awesome. If not, cool. This is a pretty deep class, so they could still get a guy that could really help them. I would love to see LaMelo Ball go to the Knicks. I think the Knicks need a number 1 point guard. And I think LaMelo Ball could be that.
They've been needing a point guard for years.
And look, LaMelo Ball is not going to bring the same drama that maybe Lonzo brought when he first came into the league with his dad. LeVar Ball has kind of been away from the spotlight, obviously, over the last, year and change,
right,
for different reasons. I don't think he would be, everything. But LeVar Ball has clearly said that out of all the teams, he wants LaMelo to go to the Knicks. Because I think that, honestly, whether you want to believe it or not, LaMelo is the best of the 3 Ball brothers. This guy has a chance. R.J. Hampton is another good player that I think the Knicks could get. There are a handful of good players that the Knicks could get if they can just develop them correctly. And what I mean by correctly is that if they are allowed to develop them the way that they're supposed to be developed, a.k.a. James Dolan stays the hell out the way and just respects the process, no joke to Philadelphia, but just respects the process of developing your talent. If you can create a tremendous team through players that you drafted and developed, you're going to get praised a lot more than just trying every other year to go out and get big-name free agents and try to become great. You've already proven several years in a row that you're not capable of convincing the talented players of this generation to come to the Knicks. Kevin Durant one time went on a local New York rap station and basically said that
didn't he talk to Charlemagne the God?
He did talk to Charlemagne the God. That is correct. He basically said, dude, players this day and age don't care about the Knicks. All they've known is them being incompetent and being bad, and the allure of Madison Square Garden. They're excited to go play there, but they don't want to be part of the team that plays there. They'll be in a visiting team. Why do you think LeBron's never been that interested in going to the Knicks? Because of that, he loves playing in the Garden, but that doesn't mean that, it's that way. Knicks fans, I'm sure more of them are starting to realize that, look, you can't just use New York and Madison Square Garden and the lure of the Knicks from the 70s and even the mid-90s to somehow convince big-name guys to come here. You need to show progress. You need to show that you're a team that's on the rise, like the Nets. The Nets did it organically. They did it in a way that was not heard of before they started doing it. They didn't have any first-round picks. Sean Marks had to find ways to sign players, then trade them for first-round picks and other picks like that, and develop the team. That's how you got there. Now, talking about Kenny Atkinson, and I'm a Nets fan, so I feel like I have enough to say about this. I feel like I have the most experience to talk about this. Kenny Atkinson does deserve some credit for what he was able to turn the Nets into.
Right.
Okay? But he is horrible with timeouts. He doesn't understand when it comes to when a team gets on a run. He doesn't know when to stop the bleeding and call timeout and calm everything down. And as a result, he lost a lot of winnable games at times when he was the coach of the Nets. And that is part of the reason why I believe he got fired from the Nets. That's part of the reason. I would have been happy as a Nets fan for the Nets to hire Tom Thibodeau. Because again, even though he is a player development coach,
nice fit.
he would have been very good with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. These guys need a kick in the butt, and I think that's what Tom Thibodeau is. He's a demanding coach. I used the Zoom background to pretty much point out this is exactly who Tom Thibodeau is.
Yep.
You see, like that's what he is. He's always been that way, and it's not going to change. And Jeff Van Gundy, more than anyone else, knows exactly the type of coach that Thibodeau is, and he knows that he's capable of doing it. Now, let's talk about Van Gundy real quick, because I want to agree a little bit with what Michael Kay said. I think that Van Gundy should have been given an opportunity to interview for the job if he was interested.
I agree with that.
But I think because of the way everything fell out the first time around with Dolan and Van Gundy, I think that's the reason why Van Gundy was never given an opportunity to interview. I don't think that James Dolan wants to go down that road again with Van Gundy, even though that's a dumb thing to say. But, again, I think the Knicks got the best coach on the market. I think they got the right guy. But again, just like with every other Knicks coach we've seen over the last 15 years, are they going to be given the opportunity to do what they need to do? Is James Dolan going to stay out the way? Another thing that I'm hoping for is that I did hear that Mike Woodson, the former Knicks coach, who was the coach of the last time the Knicks were actually in the playoffs, good, might also be on the staff with Tom Thibodeau. I think that would be great.
That would be tremendous.
Mike Woodson, who understand the Knicks and understand what it needs to be done to come here. I think that would be great. The Knicks deserve this after a while. The fans deserve it, not James Dolan. James Dolan don't deserve anything good. The fans deserve at least to have some optimism. Hiring Tom Thibodeau, bringing in Leon Rose, bringing in World Wide West gives you optimism. But unfortunately, there's always that dark cloud that's over you that says, yeah, but James Dolan is still the owner of the team. And he can at any moment screw this whole thing up.
Yeah,
he's done it numerous times. He can do it again. But if James Dolan could somehow, by the grace of God, just stay the hell out the way and do exactly what he does with the Rangers, and just let the guys do what they need to do, it'll be fine. But the problem is that James Dolan wants to be given all the credit, all the clout for being the owner of the Knicks and being part of, being the owner that helped bring the Knicks out of the pain and suffering to finally become good again and to hopefully win a championship, because then he'll be praised for many, many years. Do I think all will be forgiven that if in the next 2 or 3 years the Knicks win a championship? I think a lot of it will.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will say, okay, fine, now I don't care. It's like the Cubs. It's like, okay, finally we did it. James Dolan, I'm still mad at you at times, but like at least, the Knicks won a championship. God, you can own the team until you die, and then we'll go from there. Like that's how I think a lot of Knicks fans would do it. I think a lot of Knicks fans would be okay with it. Would they praise James Dolan?
Enough.
They would only praise James Dolan if he got out of the way. They'd be like, thank you, God, you stood out of the way. If he gets out of the way and then it doesn't work out, then you can't blame him as much, because you can be like, hey, he didn't do anything. He just let them do what they need to do, and it didn't work out. Fine. So, look, the Knicks need time. They need to accept the fact that they are not this big, bright lights, big city team. They need to develop, they need to rebuild, and they need to go from there. If they can do that within 3 or 4 years, they are a playoff contender, and then maybe they can get a big name player. Who knows? Maybe in a couple of years they draft freaking Bronny Jr. and maybe LeBron comes and they got a big three of freaking LaMelo, Bronny Jr. and LeBron James at age 41.
Oh my God.
Whatever, or however old he's going to be by that point. But, look, Tom Thibodeau, he's given a 5-year contract. What does that tell you? That tells you that this guy is in it for the long run. They want this to get done. They believe in him. Now, can James Dolan stay out of the way? We'll see.
He should.
But I like the move. He is a good development coach. He helped 2 different franchises make the playoffs and be very competitive. There's nothing saying, unless James Dolan is involved, that wouldn't prevent Tom Thibodeau from having success with the Knicks here within the next couple of years.
No, I mean, I want him to have success with the Knicks, absolutely. But considering the fact how dysfunctional they've been, mainly because of James Dolan, you're right. But listen, bottom line is, I do like it, but I'm still on the edge of it because I need to see how it plays out with this particular organization in general, because James Dolan's been a horrible owner. He's made the Knicks nothing but a dumpster fire for the past 20, 25 years. And if he stays out of the way and let Tibbs does his thing, then maybe it will just work. And on that note, that will wrap it up for a very hefty episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. If you have any thoughts on anything we discussed, and it was a lot, let us know on Twitter at BottomLineWMCX, at the MVP Show. Use hashtag BottomLine. Download Anchor for your Apple or Android devices, or go to anchor.fm and leave a voice message there as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like and a comment down below with your thoughts as well. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And also on Apple, Google, and Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just make sure you include my first name, which is Jimmy, when you search for the Bottom Line Podcast. And one more piece of news before we wrap it up, before we forget anything else, because God forbid my brain's going to push this out the window if I don't say it now. But I teased a little bit of a something special that we're going to do. Neil and I have been trying to expand our platform a little bit, like expand our thoughts away from sports for at least this next episode that's going to be going on this week. We're going to try to expand our thoughts into the world of music. And to do that, Neil and I were actually in touch with a local-ish type of band. They're from Erie, Pennsylvania. They're known for their really, really good covers of top 40 songs, but they do have originals as well. They're a hard rock band, which is my type of music. They're a band known as First to 11. Now, they're all in their late mid-teens, and I promise you, if you have not listened to these guys, check them out. They're probably one of the best local bands I've heard in a while, and that's saying a lot. So Neil and I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing them this upcoming Thursday, July 30th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Neil, I am really, really excited to finally be able to expand our platform. And you know me, music is another big, big passion of mine. And I know you're willing to learn more about it. So I'm really, really excited that you're joining me for this opportunity.
Yeah, it should be very interesting. Like you mentioned, it's a little bit different than what we're normally accustomed to doing. And I think it's good because it'll allow people to hear us talk about something a little bit different. And, just kind of expand our knowledge of many different things that people in this world are able to do. So I'm very much looking forward to talking with these guys. And who knows, maybe they'll do a live performance for us. On Thursday, but we'll see.
If we get lucky, and hey, maybe if we're also lucky, maybe one of them is a big sports fan. Maybe we can actually talk sports with them. But hey, who knows? That remains to be seen, but we'll find that out. But yes, stay tuned this upcoming Thursday, July 30th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. At least that's when we'll be talking to them. At least the episode will premiere later that day or on Friday, July 31st. I'll keep you updated on Twitter on that. But Neil and I will be talking to a band from Erie, Pennsylvania named First to 11 this upcoming Thursday. We're really, really excited, and we cannot thank them enough for taking some time out of their day to talk to us. We really do appreciate it. But be sure you check them out on social media at First to 11 and look up their videos on YouTube as well and check out some of their songs. They are tremendous. So that's coming up on Thursday. But like I said, you have any thoughts on anything we discussed in this particular episode, you know the deal by now. For Neil Villapiano, I'm Jimmy Finizzi. This is the Bottom Line Podcast. See you in the next episode.